Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak about the deteriorating humanitarian and human rights situation inside Sudan. Regrettably, as the attention of the world has been pulled in many different directions, the people of Sudan have been forgotten. For over a year and a half, the situation inside Sudan has been getting worse and worse. It happens quietly, out of the limelight, but the suffering of the Sudanese people is not silent. Their cries are deafening to those trying to help. On July 22, 2004, the House of Representatives adopted House Concurrent Resolution 467 by a vote of 422 to 0. That resolution declared that the crimes of Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir in Darfur constituted genocide. Over a decade later, the Sudanese government has renewed and increased its genocidal attacks in Darfur. As humanitarian agencies withdraw from the region, unable to carry out their missions in the face of unrelenting attacks, the civilian and displaced populations of Darfur are left without protection and without witnesses. In the past weeks, the government-supported Jangweed, now reincarnated as Bashir's Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, have intensified their scorched earth campaign of attacks, bombings, rape, displacement, and destruction. According to the Satellite Sentinel Project and the Enough Project, these forces are better equipped, centrally commanded, and fully integrated into the state's security apparatus with legal immunity from prosecution. According to reports by United to End Genocide, since January 1st, at least 20,000 innocent civilians have been forced to flee their homes in Darfur. President al-Bashir is bombing civilians, blocking the investigation of a reported mass rape of over 200 Darfuri women, and in the midst of the sharpest increase in violence in years, demanding the removal of UN peacekeepers. On January 6th, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reported that 115 villages have either been abandoned or burned to the ground in North Darfur. Attackers have forced women, children, and the elderly to leave their villages with nothing to survive on, often looting everything belonging to civilians. It is clear that the RSF and their masters in Khartoum are engaged in a campaign to strip the people of Darfur of everything they own, anything that might keep them alive, and condemn them to increasing poverty, displacement, starvation, and death. And the world, including Congress and the UN Security Council, remains silent. In the border states of South Kordofan and Blue Nile, defenseless civilians in the Nuba Mountains face a relentless bombing campaign by the Sudanese Air Force and ground attacks by the Sudanese Armed Forces. On January 20th, a hospital in South Kordofan run by Doctors Without Borders was deliberately targeted by an aerial bombing campaign, depriving the local population of life-saving care. In the past few months, under the auspices of the African Union, countries from the region, as well as the United States and Europe, have sought to bring the Bashir regime and various rebel forces to the table in order to negotiate a cessation of hostilities and promote an inclusive national dialogue. This is a worthy effort and worthy goals. But while such talks meander, Khartoum continues its genocidal campaigns to impose military solutions to the political crisis facing Sudan. President Bashir has no political solution to Sudan's problems. As the people of Darfur, South Kordofan, and Blue Nile know only too well, displacement, starvation, and death are the only strategies being pursued by the government in real time and in real life. It is unconscionable, it is shameful that these horrors are taking place inside Sudan in complete silence. The lack of response by the United States, by the Europeans, by the nations of the region only serves to provide Bashir with a green light to continue the killing. Over 10 years ago, Congress called these very same actions acts of genocide and crimes against humanity. At the end of this month, I intend to reintroduce an updated version of my bipartisan bill, the Sudan Peace, Security, and Accountability Act, and demonstrate to the suffering people of Sudan, especially those in Darfur, South Kordofan, and the Blue Nile, that we hear their cries and that this House intends to take action. I ask all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to join me in this effort, and with that I yield back the balance of my time.